Hey, this is former Ring of Honor six-man tag team champion Dutch. You're listening to Drinking at Moe's. Hopefully you have a nice cold beer in your hand. I wish I did, but I forgot. So maybe next time. Maybe next time.
I did. All right, everybody. Welcome to Drinking at Moe's. Host Big Mo here. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment on YouTube. Helps the show out. We're on a bunch of podcast platforms: Apple, Google, Spotify. Leave a review. Today, I am excited to finally have with me, after some, unforeseen circumstances postponing, former Ring of Honor six-man tag team champion Dutch. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I can't complain. Things starting to look up. Got a few shows I'm gonna be going to coming up. So
that's good.
And my favorite baseball team is the closest they've been to the World Series since '98. So
I know. They beat my favorite baseball team to get in that position.
Sorry.
It's all right. It's okay. At least they're winning. I'd rather see them beat the Dodgers because nobody likes the Dodgers, and go on and face the Phillies. And again, nobody likes the Phillies, so let's go Padres.
Yeah, and judging from a game that just ended here shortly before we started, there's a chance that it could be a rematch of the last time the Padres were even in the World Series.
Yeah.
So,
true.
Who knows?
Let's hope for a different outcome if that's the case.
Yes.
I do not want the Yankees to win at all.
I would like that to be avoided if at all possible. I mean, I've been a fan of the Padres ever since Tony Gwynn and Trevor Hoffman. So, I mean.
Oh, yeah. So, there you go.
But one thing I like to start off with everybody with is what got you started as a fan, and then what got you started to make the decision to get into wrestling?
So what got me into it as a fan is when I was young, my aunt had recorded a Saturday Night's Main Event, and they would just put that on and just put it on repeat for me, and I'd just sit in front of the television and just watch. And it was the episode where the Mega Powers exploded. So, oh yeah. So a very good episode to introduce myself to into wrestling. And really, once I started, getting older, I think I went to my first WWF house show when I was maybe 6, 7 years old. My uncle used to work security in Madison Square Garden, so would just let us right in for everything, which was amazing.
Yeah.
So I think probably the first time I was at a live wrestling event was when as a kid, you dream, whatever, you want to be an astronaut, you want to be a doctor, whatever, it was a pro wrestler for me, right from as long as I could remember.
Oh, yeah. Similar, although, with the past I ended up taking and injuries I ended up suffering in those past, actually being an active wrestler didn't turn out to be something that I could end up doing. But, I figured the show was one way that I could, kind of give back to a thing that's given me a whole lot and actually helped me through quite a bit. And who knows, maybe if someday it ends up working out that I can, jump in ring announcing for a match or two, or jump in on commentary for a match or two. I wouldn't be opposed to it, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Never say never.
Yeah. And, I remember my first wrestling show. I didn't end up getting introduced to wrestling until I got stationed in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
But my first wrestling show, I remember my dad taking me to when I was in like third grade or something. And I remember getting there and we were like on the floor right by the entrance. And I looked at the match card, and me being a 3-year-old kid, I saw this match on there that I'm like, the little kid in me was scared shitless. It was Undertaker versus Papa Shango.
Oh, yeah.
That match didn't end up happening because somebody traveled, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But we did have a match that had one of my personal favorites, Big Boss Man versus Yokozuna.
Oh, it's a hell of a matchup.
Oh, man. I was like, I saw Big Boss Man coming out and I ran over there. I'm like, oh my God. First ever bit of wrestling merch I ever bought was a foam nightstick.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think mine was the, I know I had a foam 2x4.
Oh.
And I know I had one of those. Well, I think I had a foam world title too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Speaking of the 2x4, I actually just met Hacksaw at a Wrestling Revolver show like about a month or so ago.
Oh, okay.
Out in Des Moines. That was a pretty cool experience. Pretty nice. He was asking everybody, "Oh, you watched the show back in the day?" And asking who your favorite was, and he was asking everybody, "Oh, Hogan, Warrior." I'm like, you want to know the truth? Road Warriors.
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh," and I'm like, "Dude, the freaking shoulder pads, the whole."
Oh, absolutely. The face paint and everything. Yeah, it was like a larger than life.
Oh yeah, one of those. You hear about entrance music, and like as soon as it hits, you know who it is.
Oh, yeah.
The gong with the Undertaker, glass breaking with Stone Cold Steve Austin, and when you heard that, oh, what a rush! You knew. And I got to see them live one time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's ever happened again where I've been from the moment that music hit to the moment they went back. I was on my feet jumping up and down. Oh my God. But yeah, I've had some pretty fun times. Wrestling's given me a lot. And, a lot of people might, especially recently, remember you from the time with Ring of Honor.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll go into a little bit of that. But, you've been in other promotions around, when I was doing my homework for the episode, we talked about Revolver. You've been there.
Yeah, former tag champ.
Yep.
Yeah.
You've been in Evolve.
Mm-hmm.
CZW.
Yeah.
House of Hardcore, just to name a few.
Oh, yeah.
And you faced off against some pretty big names, which that is one of my categories at the end, so we won't go into that now.
Sounds good.
But, like I said, a lot of people, especially recently, will remember you from Ring of Honor being, like I said in the intro, part of the former Ring of Honor 6-man tag champs, along with Bateman and Vincent in the Righteous. I was thinking something else there for a second.
That's all good.
But very eclectic group there. I ran into Vincent at that same Revolver show, and Bateman, I remember seeing him in some of my early independent shows when I was stationed out in California. What was it like teaming up with those guys?
Well, we are. So I've been friends. I'm friends with them before we started teaming together, and I mean, you get three guys who pretty much we share the same interests. We all love horror movies. All three of us love true crime stuff. And it's in our characters. You can tell that we mesh well together. And it was very, very easy to kind of slip right in and fit in with the group.
That is very true. I remember watching in some of those, I guess, pandemic era episodes, and y'all, like you said, y'all meshed really well together as a team. And seeing you guys work your way towards getting those Ring of Honor 6-man tag titles was pretty awesome, and ended up winning them against, correct me if I'm wrong, it was Shane Taylor Promotions at Final Battle, wasn't it?
Yes.
Okay. What was that like, finally getting to, get those belts along with two guys that, like you said, you were friends before you started teaming up, and to finally get to share something like that with them?
Well, it was awesome, and it was emotional too, because this was the last Ring of Honor show of that era before it was bought out by Tony Khan. So we opened the show. We were the first match, and I remember being in the ring as soon as the bell rung, and the crowd just on their feet clapping, and I was like, wow, this is pretty awesome. And then the end result obviously was us winning the 6-man title. So it was an emotional night. Again, being the last Ring of Honor show and the last Ring of Honor 6-man tag team champions of that era. And obviously we went on and unfortunately lost them at the pay-per-view this past July. But never say never. We might be back. I think in the rules of pro wrestling, we are owed a rematch, right?
That is true. And I mean, I was thinking, Vincent had joined Taven and Mike Bennett in Impact. They have since, word through, promotions that do tapings week in advance, that things ended with those two there, and they have since gone on to AEW. And who knows what'll happen with Vincent. And there's all this word about they're searching for a TV deal for Ring of Honor, they're doing this with that. And that was actually going to be one of my questions, was had there ever been any talk about you guys joining the Khan era of Ring of Honor?
So we never really had any sit-down meetings or anything, because I don't think, even now, I'm not 100% sure. I don't really think anybody has a full idea of what's going on. So I would imagine, after everything's all set in stone, after they have, okay, we're going to be doing this, this, and this, then, maybe we'll hopefully get a phone call saying, hey, we're interested in bringing you guys back.
I mean, that would be very deserving. I mean, they, like you said, and I would tend to agree that, they don't really seem to know what they're doing with it right now. And my main hope is that, you hear some of the communication complaints that some people that have since left have had, that I would hope that Tony Khan can start, especially when they get the TV deal, start delegating. So that way, I had this fear that if he didn't, he was going to get burnt out, and then we'd have another situation like Paul Heyman at the end of the original ECW, where he was just burnt out, wasn't delegating anything, wanted to do everything himself, and everything just collapsed.
Yeah.
And I'd hate to see that happen to Ring of Honor.
Oh yeah, same here. I mean, it's no, I don't think anybody wants to see it go away. It's it's just as revolutionary, if not more revolutionary than ECW was. I mean, you look at all the top talent on television right now, in some way, shape, or form, they came from Ring of Honor.
That is true.
You go back when WWE purchased ECW, yeah, RVD was already there, I think. You had Taz, but there were no, I guess if you want to say Benoit, Jericho, Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, if you want to say those guys, but, they traveled the world, Mexico, Japan, Europe, so they had other experience. Ring of Honor, I mean, it was, obviously those guys traveled a bit, but it's a different age, different era. And I think that, like I said, Ring of Honor is probably, when it comes to professional wrestling and pure professional wrestling, it's probably the most revolutionary promotion to ever exist.
I mean, it would be hard to argue that point. Look at some of the guys that have come from there that are on the top of their game right now.
Yeah.
AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Mike Bennett, Matt Taven, Bryan Danielson. Like, the list goes on and on. There's so many that, it would be hard to argue that.
Yeah.
And, kind of looking back on some of your time in Ring of Honor, what were some of your favorite feuds that you had? Because it seemed like a relatively short time, but you had some pretty good ones, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, it was definitely short. It only lasted, I guess, about a year. But I think my introduction into Ring of Honor was one of my favorite moments that I've had in wrestling. I mean, how I'm debuting at the 19th anniversary show during one of Ring of Honor's a 2-year feud between Vincent and David. So that was a pretty big spot for me to be in. And, going on to have a few matches. Now, being during the pandemic and being in the ROH bubble, it was weird. It was weird because we would film, I believe it was 2 months worth of television in a weekend, or in 3 days, whatever it was. But some days you get your schedule and be like, okay, you have to be at the building at 7:30 in the morning for an 8 o'clock match. Now, I mean, having rolling out of bed and getting in a wrestling ring to wrestle a television match is not the easiest thing in the world. So that was tough. But, we made the best of it. My match that I had with Matt Taven on one of the episodes. Now, it was the match was great, but it was cut. A lot of things were cut from the match. I think we went about 17 minutes, and they cut 5 minutes out of that match. Which, 5 minutes in a wrestling match. That's a lot of time.
Yeah,
that's a lot of time. Yeah. So I wish that they would release the whole match at some point. I don't know if they ever will, but the match in my mind came off better live than it did on television. But I mean, obviously being part of the feud between Vincent and Taven was great, and having a part in the cage match at the end was great too. That was one of the best matches I think of last year. And getting involved in that was great. Again, in the ECW arena, so just it was all pretty cool. And then just as we got the ball rolling with the group, after that was all said and done, they came out of nowhere and said, "Hey, that's it, guys. You're done. Final battle." So you got a month and a half left to try to figure out and get as much stuff as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And if I felt like, we had a lot of stuff prepared, we even had a lot of stuff recorded that will probably never see the light of day, and it's unfortunate because it was a lot of good stuff. And I believe Vincent's gone on podcast and mentioned that we had a whole angle planned with Jay Lethal. He was
I
going
do remember hearing about that.
He was going to join the group, and that again, that would have been awesome, because it was something different. And Jay's a guy that I don't want to say, I guess grew up watching. I mean, I started going to Ring of Honor shows back in 2002. I was, 16, 17 years old. And Jay Lethal was one of the guys that was on the first few shows that I was there. I mean, we're around the same age, but, he's, I love the guy in and out of the ring, and I always wanted to work with him. And we were going to have the opportunity. We were going to produce some real good stuff, and it just never was able to happen. Hopefully, maybe once everything is all settled and everything, maybe we'll be able to revisit that feud down the road.
I mean, there's entirely that possibility now. Hopefully they get everything figured out, because I don't know all the specifics behind working out TV deals, but I know there's a lot that goes into everything. So I know it'll take time, but hopefully it'll start happening soon, because I would love to see you guys be a part of that. Because some of my favorite memories from wrestling from the last year was seeing you guys going up against Taven and Shane Taylor Promotions. Like, I didn't get to watch all of Final Battle, but your guys' match was one that I got to watch. And I mentioned it tweeting to Vincent. I might have mentioned it to you before, but when I found out you guys were going to be on this last Ring of Honor show, that was one of my reasons I went and bought it.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you.
So I, for one, am crossing my fingers there. Do you have any, I know everybody likes to hear about backstage stories and stuff. Do you got any that you wouldn't mind sharing from that time period?
So again, it was such a weird time that there really wasn't anything going on, because they were very strict with their protocol and everything. So you were only allowed a handful of people in the arena at each time. And everybody had their own hotel room, and they had like people, walking up and down the hallways, making sure we weren't running around, hanging out with each other, But yeah, there was really, I guess, just creating friendships now that I have from that time period. Dalton Castle, good friends with him, Tracy Williams, Brody King, all those guys, and it was great. I've been friends with them before. I knew them before, but it was great to kind of be with them on like a monthly basis, because it was like, little reunion, little gathering there. It was enjoyable. And we had a lot of good meals at what was it? I can't think of the name. Joe's? No, was it Joe's? Jimmy's Famous Seafood. That's what it's called in Baltimore.
Yes.
Great restaurant.
If I'm ever down that way, I need to go there, because I've heard a ton about it.
Oh yeah, real good stuff.
And out of my wife and me, I'm probably more of the seafood type, but literally I'll try just about anything once. I'm not a picky eater. But you know, in between, well, two different times, you and Vincent Bateman, you know, in between Final Battle and really this most recent Ring of Honor show, ran around the indies with those titles, and now you're in another period where, you know, looking around, you've been making the rounds on the indies. What is the current indie scene like for somebody that has been on that stage?
The indies right now are great, I think. People say that, you know, AEW, WWE, NXT picked up a lot of talent, so there's not a lot of talent left in the indies, but that's not true. You know, there's you got to give these guys, these up and comers, a chance to shine. And I think promotions like Beyond Wrestling, Matt Tremont's H2O company is giving all these kids a lot of exposure, especially now with the IWTV app.
Yes.
All these different promotions can get on there and, you know, put their shows up. And I do it all the time. I'll just sit down and I'll throw on a random show and I'll watch it. And I'll see some real bad stuff, but then I'll see some real good stuff, you know. And that's the beauty of independent wrestling. You get to see all aspects of it, and you know, it's nice to see a lot of these guys, you know, starting out and following their careers, and you know, hoping that one day they get a shot, and if they do, you know, following it from then on out. And yeah, it's you know, it's great. Like in NXT, Carmelo Anthony. Is it Carmelo? Carmelo Hayes.
That's
a basketball player.
The basketball guy, yeah.
Yeah. You know, I saw him start out on the indies, and Vincent, you know, I think he had a little hand in like helping him out, like maybe training him a little bit. So that was a kid that I saw start, you know, from scratch, and now, you know, he's getting toward the big stage, you know, and I love seeing that with a lot of these guys.
Oh yeah, I mean, him with NXT, you know, they're getting a lot of those guys, and Carmelo Hayes in particular got that big match coming up at NXT's version of Halloween Havoc with that North American title ladder match, which, I mean, you look at some of the other talent in that match, it's like, okay, I'm going to have to keep my eye on that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, you brought up another good point with, you know, IWTV, and, you know, now there's also Pro Wrestling TV that, you know, are giving a lot of independent promotions that might not have necessarily had the outlet before, are now just adding to the sheer amount of choices that fans of pro wrestling have, that you can go out and you can find that H2O or, oh, good Lord, so many that I'm having a brain fart even trying to remember the damn.
No, there's a lot out there, believe me.
But yeah, and I mean, Fight TV is another one that's given a lot of promotions out there. You know, everybody knows Fight TV with GCW, and just, I mean, I've been lucky enough to interview a couple people from there and loved it. What are some of your hopes for your wrestling future? Like, where are you hoping to go? Places you're hoping to go with it, and that sort.
Kind of like, you know, what I touched base on before. I would love to revisit this Jay Lethal feud at some point. There's a lot of guys I'd love to work with that are, you know, in the indies, and a lot of guys that, you know, potentially, if, you know, if the time comes, there's a lot of guys up in WWE, NXT, AEW that I want to work with. A lot of guys that I've worked with before that, and I started out, we've all, grown and we've all gotten better. So I want to just kind of, test myself, I guess, just to see how I've gotten compared to some of these other guys, And, wrestling is just, it's something I'll never not do. I'll always have my hand in it one way or another, whether it be wrestling, helping, training, maybe producing matches, stuff like that, So, wherever it takes me, I won't be leaving anytime soon. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, you bring up a good point. You faced off and shared the ring with a bunch of the guys that are on this bigger stage now. That is like, it would be, in my opinion, I'm sure you might agree, getting to share the ring with those people again on this bigger platform would definitely be pretty cool. So you get even more people's eyes on it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's, it's like Dr. Tom Pritchard, one of my trainers, always says, he's like, are you going to see the same people climbing up the ladder? You're going to see them going down the ladder as well. Same people. So, whether that ladder is, we're still going up, remains to be seen, but I'd still love to share the ring with a lot of these guys at some point.
Definitely. You named off a few that I know I'd love to see again. Next off, I kind of like to round off my show with two different categories. This first one, a bit of a name game. I like to, if at all possible, gather up names of people you've shared the ring with in one way or another, whether facing off against them, teaming with them, that sort. And, you give me your thoughts on them, how you see fit.
Cool.
First off, I figure no better way to lead off a category than with Vincent and Bateman. We'll lump them both together.
Sure. I mean, they're two of my best friends. And like I said before, it's really easy to work with those guys because we click, we connect, and we mesh well right off the bat. And I hope to keep this thing going for as long as possible with them.
Oh, that would definitely be awesome. I know I love seeing y'all team together. Next off, another duo that is synonymous with Ring of Honor, the Briscoes.
Oh, the Briscoes, yeah. So I love those guys, and they're another one of the. I've always wanted to work with them, and we had the opportunity at a pay-per-view last year, but I think it was not even 30 seconds before we were going out. The COVID test results came back and said that Jay Briscoe had tested positive for COVID. So they called an audible and were like, Bateman and Mark, go out there. But we eventually were able to, get a match with them for Northeast Wrestling up here in New York.
Yeah.
And, it was great. We had a blast, and I would love to do it again. They were one of those guys where I feel like if that was the one team I could wrestle for the rest of my life, then so be it. I'd be more than happy with that.
You hear that a lot with those guys. Next off, and then I'll get to a few not Ring of Honor, but last of my Ring of Honor ones, Jonathan Gresham.
Oh, Gresham, another great guy. He's got a great mind for this business, and he really knows how to work well. I compare him to an Eddie Guerrero type, because Eddie Guerrero wasn't the biggest guy, but he can work with the Big Show, and you'd believe that they're the same size. Mm-hmm. And that's the same thing with Jonathan Gresham. You look at that match with Claudio Castagnoli at the pay-per-view. I mean, granted, like whatever had happened before and after, throw that away. The match was great, and they both made it work.
Mm-hmm.
Gresham being the smaller of the two, didn't look like he was the smaller of the two. It looked like he fit right in. You know, I've worked with Gresham a little bit here and there. I'd love to work with him more. Even after we had wrestled, he pointed out a few things. He's like, why don't you do like this way? Or you're a lot bigger than I am, so make it seem like you're a lot bigger than I am. Just little things that he taught me afterwards. I now use in my regular matches.
Yeah. No, definitely, like you said, one of those guys that definitely has a great talent and is one of those guys that, like, you often worry sometimes with smaller guys going up against the bigger guys. But he is definitely one of those guys that makes it believable that this smaller guy can very well beat that bigger guy.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And again, he's got such a great mind for wrestling.
That he does.
Yeah, he's been around for a little bit now.
Yeah.
So, grabbing a charger here.
Oh, you're good.
Find it.
But, I like that he's getting back out there with GCW. He had that match for them here recently.
Uh-huh.
And, well, next off, I got a couple people that I noticed in promotions outside of Ring of Honor. Some of them they've also been there before. But first off, Eddie Kingston.
Oh, Eddie Kingston. One of my best buds. He won't admit that, but
I want new followers on TikTok, but I just don't know how. Oh, have you tried the new thumb up feature? I don't give a flying fuck. I'm just doing these damn videos for the fuck of it anyways. So, piss off.
God damn it.
Oh. All right. A little bit of a technical thing, but we are back at it. We were just about to start talking about the one and only Eddie Kingston.
Yes, Eddie Kingston. I love that man. He's a unique individual, and he's doesn't hold back with his feelings. Know if he likes you or not. I think everybody knows that by now. But I mean, thankfully, I think he likes me, which is good, So, but no, he's great inside and out of the ring. We've had some good deep discussions and stuff, and he's such a good dude. He'll give you the shirt right off his back if you like it. If not, that's a different story.
He definitely comes across that if you're on his good side, he's got you. If he don't like you, you're shit out of luck.
Yeah, I think so.
But I mean, that's one thing I think a lot of people can, if they really sit down and think about it, can really admire, because there's so many people out here that you really don't know what way they think about you one way or another. They could say one thing in front of you, another thing behind you. Eddie Kingston definitely comes across as that guy that's like, for certain, the same thing that he'd say to your face is the same thing he'll say when you're not there.
110%.
One of my personal favorites right now, because I gravitate towards those guys that, for the lack of a better way to describe it, they ooze that intensity. And he is very much that. I mean, heck, just look back to that feud he had not all that long ago with Miro and AEW. I got the damn shirt from that spawned from that feud where he comes out. Miro had the whole Redeemer thing, and Eddie Kingston comes out and is like, redeem these nuts, and just ran at him. Love it.
Oh, it's amazing.
Oh man, I don't really wear it around my wife too much because I don't think she really gets that part of my humor too much.
Yeah, understandable.
It's whatever. But next off, Roppongi Vice.
Oh, Roppongi Vice. Yes, I've wrestled them quite a few times. We've had some great matches in Evolve. Where else? I think a few places over in Chicago, Midwest. We've wrestled. But I mean, Trent and Rocky. Yeah, I mean, those two guys are great. I mean, those are two completely different styles of wrestling, but they just mesh well together.
Well, that they do.
Yeah, and that's why they work, and that's why they're intriguing. And they're another one of those tag teams where I wouldn't mind having to wrestle them for the rest of my career.
Yeah, that would be some good ones. I know I had to go back and look, but I've actually met Rocky a couple times when I was stationed down in San Diego in some of the matches for the promotion that actually introduced me to independent wrestling. Actually, I'm going to get framed up in my man cave when I get that set up. I got an event poster that was signed by everybody on the card. And I mean, I'm looking at, like, it has pretty much everybody's picture on it. And I'm looking around, I'm like, holy shit, yeah, that's Rocky Romero.
Yeah.
Next one, a guy that recently made his return to WWE, Johnny Gargano.
Johnny Gargano, yeah, he's another one. Good guy. I've wrestled him and Drew McIntyre. Actually.
Yeah.
As far as I know, it was maybe the only time in wrestling in recent memory that I could imagine is you have a WWE contracted champion and a TNA contracted champion holding the independent the tag titles for an independent company, defending them on an independent show. And I think that was the first time that had ever happened, where you got a WWE guy, an Impact guy on an indie show, defending indie titles on that show. So again, I could be completely wrong, but I think that it's not. It could be true.
I would have to venture to agree with you because I can't say I can remember too many other times that anything like that's happened.
Yeah.
Last but not least, my random question round. I believe I used to call it a speed round, but to be honest, it never went that quick, so I just changed the name of it. But some might be wrestling related, some might not be. I just putting my notes together, pile up a bunch of questions and just pick a few. One that I do like to ask quite often is, what is one of your craziest in-match moments?
Oh, let's see. There's quite a few. Let's see. Well, I was just talking about this the other day. There was a match I had down at FCW with Seth Rollins. And it was, at the time, they were doing this thing called, I think it was the Jack Briscoe Classic Champion. So it was, I think, a 20-minute Iron Man match. That whoever, that's what the gimmick was for these Jack Briscoe Classic matches. So it was me and Seth Rollins, and we go out there, and we've wrestled a bunch, and we could just go. We went out there without really talking. It was in, I think, Largo, Florida, in front of maybe 12 people. So we were just like, let's just go out there and have fun. So I think within the first 30 seconds, he made me throw up. And then I busted my own nose open within the first 30 seconds of the match.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, so that's one of the crazier things that has happened. Also, this probably takes the cake. Right in early on in my wrestling career, I had just signed my WWE contract. And of course, my luck, that next weekend I go wrestle. And it was, I think it was a hardcore match against this guy named Jay Lover, who's a great guy. He's a New York-based wrestler. You know, we've had some great matches over the years. I'll tell another story after this too that it also involves him. So the first story, this match in particular, at some point somebody comes out and hits him with a metal crutch. Now this crutch exploded, and I was like laying on the floor over in the corner, and I felt something graze the side of my face. Paid no attention to it. Touched my again. I touched the side of my face and looked at my hand. My hand was already like dripping with blood. And I was like, "Oh my god, this isn't good." So I went and picked him really quick, and then rushed out of the ring. And when I get back, somebody takes a picture, and my ear was hanging off of my face. My ear was dangling down to like where my shoulder is.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. So, but the weird thing is, it was such a perfect cut, and it hit me in such a, I guess, good spot, because it became a half-inch here. It would have sliced me right in the eye, or if it was a half-inch over here, it would have sliced my ear right off.
Oh boy!
And the scar is about, I'd say, 5 inches. So got that stitched up, and again, that was right after I had signed my contract. So in my head, I'm like, oh my God, they're going to find out about this, and they're going to release me beforehand, and all that. And so then fast forward after I got released, so about 3 years later, me and Jay Lover rekindled the feud that we had before I got signed. And we were having another hardcore match at the Elks Lodge in Queens, which ECW made famous back in the day. And again, I believe this is the only time that this has ever happened. I guess the match got too out of hand for the owners of the building, and they turned all the lights on and jumped the railing and like rang the bell and called the police on us, had the match shut down, and then wrestling was banned in the Elks Lodge for like 5 years.
Oh boy.
So I guess that's like a badge of honor, getting wrestling banned from the Elks Lodge for a while.
I would venture to say that, you could definitely, I don't know if necessarily take pride in that, but definitely something you can look back on and kind of be like, dude, we actually did.
Oh, absolutely.
Next one food you refuse to eat.
Ooh, that's a tough question because I do love to eat. Food that I refuse to eat. That's tough because for a while it was salmon. I'm not a big salmon guy, but just recently I started to like it. Man, that's tough. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and say, because, and it's not that I refuse to eat it, but I definitely would pick something else over this if I had options, was lamb. Not a big fan of lamb.
Yeah, I would have to probably go something similar myself. I've had it before, but if I had a choice for something else, I would probably go for that.
Yeah.
One or maybe a couple favorite venues / cities to wrestle in.
Oh, let's see. ECW Arena obviously is one of the best, that house the hardcore there. The Mid-Hudson Civic Center, which is by me in New York. That was always a goal of mine, was to wrestle there, and I've gotten to do that quite a few times now. Cities, I love Chicago. Chicago is one of my favorite cities to wrestle in. It's one of my favorite cities to go to too. The crowds are just great there. Let's see. I like the crowd. The crowds in Los Angeles are good. I don't like Los Angeles, but the crowds are good there. Yeah, I'd say probably my favorite city to wrestle in is probably Chicago.
It's definitely a storied wrestling town.
Mm-hmm.
With AEW seeming to go there at least once every other month, if not every single month.
What it seems like.
Yeah, dang. It's like they've got so many cities that they haven't been to, including Omaha, where I live. Closest they've come is Kansas City, which is like 2 hours. And then they've had Hangman come to World of Wheels. That's the closest we've come to AEW being in Omaha.
Oh, wow.
But, Chicago, can't argue with the history of wrestling that they've had.
Mm-hmm.
Last but not least, for random question round, best advice for anybody wanting to get into wrestling?
I mean, you got to find a reputable school, get trained properly. You gotta figure out if this is, really what you want to do. Now, I am not opposed to going out there and pursuing your dream in the least, because that's what I did. I have little regrets, but some of my biggest regrets are listening to others and trying to please others when I should have been trying to, please myself. And I just, if you want it that bad, then absolutely 100% go for it, but get properly trained, because if you don't get properly trained, you will go nowhere. Potentially hurt yourself. You'll potentially hurt others. There's a lot of good reputable schools in this country. But there are more bad wrestling schools in this country than there are good. And anybody that always asks me is I always will tell them, go to Black and Brave in Iowa, go to Seth Rollins' school, because not only it doesn't matter where you live, because I know for a fact that he will work something out with you where room and board will be included in your tuition. So for 3-6 months, however long it is the program is, go there, because everything is taken care of. And I know his family is there. His mother takes care of the room and board. She stocks the fridges and everything. They take care of you there, and you're gonna learn the correct way. And obviously, once training is complete and you've gotten you got on the road, you've done a bunch of matches, there's literally nobody else better in the world of professional wrestling to know than Seth Rollins. So to have him as your trainer, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're good or if you're bad. If I'm a wrestling promoter, first thing I'll ask you is, who trained you? You say Seth Rollins. Okay, you're on my show. Because not only does that do good for you, that also does good for me. Because now I have this reputable student from a reputable school, from a reputable trainer on my show.
Mm-hmm.
So it works both ways. And, and again, you got Jay Lethal's school in Florida. You got the Monster Factory in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, you got to do the research, or you got to ask people. You can't. I've had people ask me, and there's a few around here that I've told people not to go to.
Yeah.
It's just they're stealing money from it. The guys, I'm not going to name names, but he'll promise you the world and steal your money. But the thing is he'll put you in matches and on shows immediately, which is again not good.
Yeah.
But this place has never produced a single good professional wrestler ever, ever. So that should show you something right there.
I mean, yeah, you literally go to any part of the country. I mean, California's got Santino Brothers, which is very reputable out there. Level Up that B-Boy runs, another great one. That it's pretty much turned into a promotion that they're running some pretty great shows. Black and Brave Academy, I've actually interviewed for this show the Brave and Black and Brave Academy, so that was that was pretty fun. I know New York has a few. I know somebody else that I've interviewed for the show. Coincidentally, the first one I ever did over Zoom, the SATs have started opening up.
Oh yeah, they just opened up a school not too long ago, I
think. And they're
House of Glory that's owned by Amazing Red too.
Yeah.
We got that. Yeah, so there's options. You just gotta ask the right people, and you gotta do your research beforehand.
Oh yeah, no, that is definitely true. Well, that is about all I have. I want to first thank you for taking the time to talk to me tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Two, where can people find you? Get their eyes on you.
So if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's at ROH Dutch, and on Twitter, it's DeathXWalks.
I'll definitely have links to both in the description. Again, I can probably say it a billion times. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I've been excited about doing this one for a while.
Oh yeah, man, absolutely. Of course, thanks for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. Welcome back anytime. Maybe, one of these days some announcements come up. We can have you back on to start talking about them.
Sounds good to me.
All righty.